What's up, guys? This is Ty, and in this video I want to share with you guys something that I did when I was younger, and it was the research that I did on how to train people and how to get people to work out and grow their muscles and get them stronger and everything. I get questions a lot about why I am against certain exercises that people do in the gym. Things like, cable crossovers and flies and things like that. And I always respond with that. I used to do I never saw anybody get measurable, significant and measurable results with it when I was doing the testing and the research on the prisoners that I did in prison. And I always get people asking me, like, what are you talking about, Ty, about testing on these prisoners? So in this video, I want to share a little bit about what I did and how I tested these exercises on the hundreds of prisoners that I did in the U.S. Federal prison system, okay? And that way it will help you guys understand this, and maybe you guys will see things in a different light and help you guys in some way to increase your performance, okay? When people work out in prison, they work out for a lot different reasons than why people work out here on the streets, okay? In there, they work out mainly because of survival, because if you were not the biggest and the strongest and the baddest mofo in prison, then you had a really hard time surviving in there. So it's very important that you at all times display that you were one of the biggest and one of the strongest guys in the system, right? And on the yard. And the yard is where, is the compound or the institution where, or the property that all the prisoners were housed at. They call it the yard, okay? The other thing too is that the gym that they work out in is called the weight pile. And that's where all the weights are just piled up on a slab of concrete out in the middle of the sun. Okay, so that's how the gyms were set up in there. And when you go in there to work out, everybody took their shirts off. A lot of people took their shirts off, and you out in the sun. And it was very obvious who were the bigger guys and who were the stronger guys. So there was really not too much to dispute there. Okay, so when I first got there in 1993. I was scared, obviously scared shitless, because I was only a teenager at that time, and I was extremely skinny. I was only 132, 135 pounds, somewhere around there in the low 130s, mid 130s. Now I'm about 190, At my peak, when I was in the system, I was up to like 211, 212 during my peak, when I was able to train consistently and train full time. So what happened was, when you go in there, you immediately had to learn how to work out and figure out ways to get bigger and stronger. Otherwise, someone would try to go up in your butt or something, okay? So when I got in there and I started learning how to work out and started training people and stuff, here's one of the things that I did, because there was so many exercises, and at that time we had stacks of Muscle and Fitness magazine, Flex magazine, Muscle Media 2000, Iron Man, Powerlifting USA. So it was really, because I came from a engineering background. My goal was, before I went to the system, my goal was to go to school at the University of, I was accepted to go to Texas A&M University as an engineer. So I always had this engineering mindset in the background, okay, to test everything and make sure that it was valid. So when I was reading all these magazines and books and stuff on learning how to get bigger and stronger, what I did was I was able to get hundreds of the prisoners in there, and this is how I would test to see if something actually worked, okay? I would have a control group where I had the guys that I trained over here, okay, and then I would have what's called a variable group over here. And this is how I did my testing for nearly for over 13 years, okay? I did it before they made it illegal in the prison system. When I came in there in 1993, it was legal to get bigger and to get stronger. After 95, Congress did not like the idea that the prisoners were getting bigger and stronger than the people out here on the streets, right? So they made it illegal to get any more weight training equipment, and they slowly phased it out, okay? But even then, I was still able to figure out different ways to do my research, okay? So what I did was here, okay? So that you guys understand how I did my research, what I would do is I would split up a group of people, okay? And let me just go ahead and just, there was a bunch of them, okay, in each group, so that the numbers would be more accurate. Okay, I'm just drawing just a few up here, just an example, but just keep in mind there was hundreds of them, okay? So what I would do is this. I would split them down the middle, and in the control group, they did the exact same exercise every time. They never changed nothing. The only thing that they changed was maybe 1 or 2 exercises, and that was it. So in this group, I will give you guys an example. I would have these guys do the flat bench, okay, for chest, and I'm just using chest as an example. We can do this for all the exercises, okay? So what I would do is I would take the flat bench and I would do it with the bar, and I would do it with the dumbbell, okay? So these guys, that's all they did, was they would do it with the bar and the dumbbell, and they would do nothing else. There was no flies, there was no cable crossovers, there was no push-ups, there was no dips, there was nothing. The only thing that these guys did in this group was the flat bench with the bar or else the dumbbells. The majority of the time, it was with the bar, because in prison, when they started making weights illegal there in the mid-90s, we can only use the weights that were there available until it broke, and then they would just throw it away, and then we would never get it again. So what happened was we would preserve those weights as much as possible, right? So sometimes people drop them, and the bars are bent. I mean, literally, they're bent like a half a circle, okay, like a rainbow, and we still had to use them. So, and then as it started to phase out, we couldn't use a lot of that. So the flat bench with the straight bar is the most reliable one. So this group right here did mostly flat bench for chest. And that's all they would do. The only thing they would work out, I would have them work out for like 6 to 8 weeks at a time, and take 5 days off, and then work out another 6 to 8 weeks, and then take another 5 days off, and so on. Okay. Over here, in order to measure it so that it was equal, what I would do is I would have these guys over here in the variable group do 1 exercise for chest. So what I would do is I would have them do like maybe flies, okay, and do it for the same period of time. Remember, it was all, I'm just going to say 8 weeks here, because in there it's more, you don't have a lot of the mental stress. You do, but it's a lot different than out here in the free world. So the guys I trained in there, I would stretch them out to 8 weeks. Out here, I would only just go like 6 weeks, okay? But in there, they would each train, so the amount of time that they trained was the same. Their diet was the same. Everybody ate beans and rice and ramen noodles. No, there's nobody that ate anything special. There's nobody that did anything special, drugs or anything. So out of 1,800 prisoners there, I didn't train every one of them, but you know, I trained a big enough chunk of the population where I could get measurable results. Okay. So what I would do is I would train these guys for 8 weeks over here in the variable group, and at the end of that, there was 2 tests that I would do. Okay. When it was time to test, I would have them do a 1 rep max on the flat bench, or I would do the number of push-ups that they could do. Okay? So either one of those, and consistently. It was very, very consistent. The guys that did the flies, they rarely ever show any significant results. And this is what I mean. If I had this group bench for 8 weeks with the bar or a dumbbell, there would be several ways that they would indicate to me that they made progress. The obvious one is that whatever their original 1 rep max was, they're able to maintain it. Okay, if you guys have been working out for a long time, you know that it's very difficult to maintain a 1 rep max for an extended period of time. So for example, like my max in the bench press has been 325, right? And I can do that maybe once or twice or 3 times out of the year. But you know, with the way that life goes on, you know, it's very, very difficult to maintain that the whole time. So one way that we can determine if someone is getting results or not is that they're able to repeat their 1 rep max. So if these guys, whatever their 1 rep max was that I had written down before I trained them for that 8 weeks, if they're able to repeat that same 1 rep max again, I consider that good progress. Okay. Now, even better than that is if they increase their 1 rep max. If they increase it by 5 pounds, 8 pounds, 7 pounds, that's great. Or if the bar speed moves faster. Let's say that in the past they moved the bar extremely slow to finish that lift, but now after the 8 weeks of training they're able to move it at a faster pace. Well, then that's progress. So the progress that I saw in these guys were very, very noticeable, and they were very measurable. In other words, there was nobody that could see it and then dispute it if they were there with me. Okay. Now these guys over here, okay, we would test these guys, my friends and I would test these guys, and there was no significant results. If you put them on, we had them bench press something, and then at the end of that 8 weeks of doing just only flies, nothing else. Remember, each group only got to do one exercise, okay? So this way we can isolate it. Because if we do flies and then we do, let's say, bench press and incline and decline presses, that's extremely difficult to test because now there's too many variables and you don't know what it was that actually produced the bigger and stronger chest or the bigger and stronger muscle, okay? So because of that, we would only isolate it to just one exercise per muscle group. And because of that, I was able to determine that out of all the exercises that you could possibly do for your chest, this exercise right here, the dumbbell flies or the cable crossovers, was the least likely to produce or yield any noticeable results. Now, some people might say, yeah, they do produce results, okay? Well, that's great. But is it noticeable, and is it significant, and is it measurable to where somebody else can see it? And if it's not, then really it doesn't do anybody any good. You know, especially if you're trying to get bigger or stronger for sports or anything like that, you want measurable results. You don't want to go through, if you're fighting MMA or something, you know, your chest muscles used to help you punch, okay, and your triceps. You don't want to spend 8 weeks in a fight camp and come out and your muscles are not any stronger for it, okay? Or you don't want to prepare for a powerlifting meet or prepare for a football season and come to find out after 8 weeks of training that there is no strength improvement or there's no performance improvement, okay? So because of that, I would start to accumulate this data and list it as to what was working and what was not working. And when I say what's working, what's not working, maybe I should, you know, rephrase it and say that what gives a better result. Okay, so does this work? Yeah, if you've never worked out in your life, you know, doing flies is better than nothing. Then it's better than not doing any type of exercise. However, if you can only have 10 or 12 minutes or half an hour to work out once a week to do your chest, this is not the top of the list. I mean, if you list the top, you know, exercises to do, this is not one of them. It's not even in the top 20 that I know of, because there's 24 other exercises that can produce a bigger and stronger chest for your athletic performance, much more so than flies or cable crossovers ever will do. Okay, so, and that was how I tested it, guys. You know, I get asked this question a lot. You know, sometimes when I say that something doesn't work, you know, it's usually because it's from the testing I did for 13 and a half years in prison. It's not something that I just pulled out my butt and just said, hey, this doesn't work. You know, I mean, we actually had a nickname for the guys that were in this group right here. We called them the Thelma and Louise group, okay? Because I had a few guys in here that they would run around in, and they were trying to look pretty when they were in prison, you know, and that's not something you want to do. You want to look, you know, hard and masculine so that nobody messes with you. And these guys thought they were, you know, on the beach or something every day that they were there. So, I mean, so people were always making fun of them and giving them a hard time when I was training them. And those were not just the two guys. There was a bunch of them there, okay, at multiple different prisons that I did this testing on. And I just consistently found that there were certain exercises that produced a bigger bang for the buck. For the amount of time that you spend training, it just produced better results. Now, I also get this question a lot, is that, hey, if the flat bench and bar and dumbbell does really good for your chest and gets you bigger and stronger, right? Why don't you get this exercise and do like the flies and the cable crossovers to shape your chest, okay? And again, guys, I've heard that before, and we did it, and we, you know, keep in mind, guys, that these guys that I train at each prison, I was there with them for a very long time. I trained them for several years. I didn't just train them for a few months and then quit, like at Gold's Gym or at LA Fitness or 24-Hour Fitness or Lifetime Fitness, where the average trainer only gets to train a client for, you know, like a month or two. I was training these guys for, on average, the average client that I had in there that I was training was for a few years, okay? So I got to test all kinds of different things on them to see if it works or not, and there was always a fresh new batch of young people, always a new bus full of new prisoners that they brought in every week to test out. So it was not very hard to find the guinea pigs to do this testing, okay? Now, a lot of these guys, they were scared just like I was when I first came into the system, so they were very, very happy to volunteer for me to train them, because whenever I worked out personally with my crew in there, okay, and when you work out in there, you always work out with a crew, okay, you never work out alone in prison, because you don't want to be laying down trying to bench press 300, 400, 500 pounds and somebody come by and drop a 200 pound plate on your face, or drop a 100-pound plate on your face, or drop a dumbbell on your face and smash your face in. And that happens with guys that, you know, like some of the guys that are in there for, like, you know, child molesting and, you know, crimes that are even the prisoners could not handle, you know, ethical crimes, right? So you always work out with a group of guys, you know. So every prison that I was at, I always worked out with like 4 or 5 guys. We never worked out with less than 4 or 5 guys. You don't do that in prison if you want to stay alive, okay? And consistently, I always had the strongest or the second strongest workout crew at almost every prison that I was at, you know. I'm not saying that I'm the strongest, I'm saying that a combined total, my crew was always the strongest or the second strongest in the system. So, and it was very known on the yard. So when people come in and they want to learn how to work out, it was very easy for them to come to me and for me to train them, okay? So I thought I would share this with you guys because I get questions a lot on how I come about, you know, when I talk about doing research on this, you know. If you guys like this video, hit the like button, thumbs up. You know, if you have any questions or comments regarding or any questions about how I did the testing in the prison system, just let me know and I'll answer it as best I can. If you guys have anything to say about what I dispute or something, you know, or dispute what I have to say, please state your source and state how you came to that conclusion. In this video, I explained to you guys how I tested it and came to this conclusion here. And in the future videos, I'll even talk about how I tested some of the supplements that we smuggled into the prison and why I'm totally against supplements, because we spent thousands and thousands of dollars smuggling it into the system, and I was able to test these two groups constantly, okay? And I have a lot to say about that too, but this video is not about supplements. This video is just about how I tested the prisoners and had them as guinea pigs in there, and how I was able to come up with some of the information that I got to train people. And this is, by the way, this is how I also learned how to rehab people too, because a lot of them were injured in there, okay, and there was no physical therapist in there, and so I had to figure out ways to help those guys walk and move around again. So that was how I learned how to rehab people too. So I hope you guys like this video. Like I said, if you have any questions, just leave a comment below, shoot me an email, whatever, you know. And if you haven't subscribed to our Modern Sports Training newsletter yet, I highly recommend that you subscribe to it so that you can get more information to help you increase your performance, okay? I'll see you guys in the next video.